Hi guys. So if you haven't seen the part 1 of this video, which is very important, where I have shown how to prepare this image in Lightroom for further editing in Photoshop, which we are going to see now, please see that before you proceed ahead. It is absolutely important that you understand that video first before watching this video. The link is in the description. You will also see the link on the top hand right corner right now. Welcome to Photoshop now. In Photoshop, our main aim is to work on specific parts of the object as well as the background and the foreground. This is the background layer. I'm just going to create multiple layers of this background. This one is the backup layer, and this is the layer which I'm now going to start building on. So I go to selective color. Now my first color which appears over here is red. So I have to narrow down in the image where my reds are prominent, where I want to make the changes in the image to the reds. I target my objects. Now first of all, I'm targeting the leaves which are strewn down on the background, reducing the cyan, applying a bit of magenta in the same, a bit of yellow to it as well. The layer mask is white. That means that the effect has been taken place on the entire objects or the entire image where there are reds. I invert this using command I or control I, and since this layer mask has been turned to black, use my brush over here and I change this brush value to white. I start painting on the objects which are red. You can adjust brush size using your square brackets, opening and closing square brackets. To see where your effect has been applied, press the backslash and you will see a red mask which has appeared. Now the places where there is no red or no mask, this means that the effect has been applied over there. Now my next target is my object. So I first do everything for all the reds in the image. I want to make sure that the fur of the tiger looks orange because that is the main color of the object. And over here, I again invert my layer mask, take the brush, and I turn on this mask and I carefully first apply this brush on the borders of the object. You need perfect precision when doing this kind of an image processing. I'm trying to apply this to the colors which are not even red. I'll tell you the reason. I want to make a selection out of this object for the easiness of work. That is the reason I'm applying this red or the effect that I'm doing to the parts which are not even red. Anyways, the effect is not going to take place, but I'm trying to achieve two things in one step. This object has been painted. Now, why I applied this color on the entire object is because I want to create a selection. How to create a selection out of a mask? Right click, add mask to selection. When I click this, the object gets selected with dotted lines or the marching ant line. What I do is I go over here to select, save selection, and I give the name for the selection. Now, what we are calling this? Object. So I just give the name as object and I click on OK. Now I need not select this object again and again. I remove this using Ctrl D. If at all later I want to select only the object on that specific layer, I just go to select, load selection. In this channel drop down, I just need to select the object and click on OK, and my object will be selected. The next step that I want to do is about the greens and the yellows. Always remember that when you are planning to work on the greens, 90% of the time, even if you see the color as green, the underlying color which is there is the yellow. Now can you see that even my object is getting applied? That is because it has a major part of yellow in it. I just want to select this, select on this layer mask, select load selection, and I just select the object and I click OK. Now once this is selected, I just need to now see this. If the layer is white, okay, to remove or to erase, what is the brush color that I want to use? Black. So over here, using the B key, I select the brush, and using the X key, I select the black color, and I just go ahead, take a big nice brush, and I just brush it off. So my effect on the object gets reduced. What I do is I go over here again in selective color and I choose greens as well, okay, just in case, and I just apply a bit of yellow to this. Okay, so I'm introducing a bit of yellow to this and I'm reducing the cyans and adding a bit of red so that my greens do not appear acid greens or they do not appear unhealthy neon greens. Okay, and what I do over here is I just select this layer, which the layer mask which was underneath it. I just press Alt, keep pressing the Alt, and I just drag this layer mask on the top layer. What do you see? That the same layer mask has been applied to the above mask as well. I can see that there is a nice separation between this object and the greens and the reds in the background and the blues and everything. But now I have to make sure that I detail this object. How do I do that? Before going ahead, I add a merge all layer, Control Alt Shift E for Windows or Command Alt Shift E for Mac. So this is my separation layer now. So below here, I know that all my selective color has been applied. Okay, I can easily go and I can just create a group of this, give this a name, selective color. On top of this, I now want to start working with the dodge and burn or the detailing process. So for that, what I do is I create a blank layer and then I fill it with 50% gray. Over here in edit, I select fill and then in the content 50% gray, mode normal, opacity 100, and I do not check this preserve transparency. I just click OK, and then once this is a gray layer, I just go to this blending mode and I turn this to overlay so that now even after applying this 50% gray, I can see everything which is visible below this layer. First, what we are going to do is we are going to apply the dodging for the image. So what does dodging do? Dodging enhances the highlights in the image. Okay, I press Shift O and this dodge tool is selected. It is represented by this small lollipop over here on the left hand side. If you long press, you'll see dodge tool, burn tool, and sponge tool. So I use this dodge tool. I set the range of this dodge tool to highlights and I set this range to something between 1 to 10%. And the first thing that I'm going to target over here are the eyes. So reduce your brush size. Dodging is nothing but a brush, okay? And I'm going to start applying this brush tool. Now we are going to go on and work on the shadows. As I showed you, I already have an action created for that, and that makes my work easy. Now I press Shift O again to build a burn tool, and now I start the burning process. Now here, using the burning process, my range is shadows, and similarly the exposure is again low. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm just going to apply this first to all the objects in the background. Firstly, so I am going to increase the speed over here. Once I am done with this, we'll come back to the main object and I'll show you how the burning is done on the main objects to actually create that drama and the segregation. So let me just finish this quickly. As I said earlier, we are going to come back again, revisit the highlights, revisit the shadows, because this is a process that has to be done over and again because you're building creative light on top of the object. So, multiple visits to the entire image in terms of highlights and shadows is very, very, very important. And hence, I always suggest that you keep the values to bare minimum so that you don't overdo the action in the first go immediately. So if you see, I have given a much bigger preference to the highlights on this part of the image rather than on this part of the image. Okay, I'm just going to make a group of this dodging and burning. I'll now show you the before and after. I'll turn off the group. See this. This was before and this is after. This is before, this is after. The most important step that I'll be doing now is I'll be reducing the blues and cyans to a small level in the whites of the tiger's fur. I go to the hue and saturation panel, go to cyans, and I increase it to the full level. And now over here, you see where there are cyans in the entire image. However, when I said that I want to reduce them in the tiger's fur where it is white only. I'm taking it back to normal and I'm reducing it, keeping my focus only on the face and the white parts near the chest, the blues. I again take the blues up and see where there are blues in the image. Again, I reduce these blues to the normal and take these blues a bit down before and after. But now this has been applied on the entire image. We invert this, getting the effect back again, and we just take a white brush and we simply erase them off from the parts where we don't want them. Okay, so now what we are going to do is we have to build a light on this object. We know that the source of light is from this side, while there is no source of light from this side. It is all shadows over here. Okay, so we want to show that the light is seeping in from this side. Okay, create a blank layer, go over here to the gradient tool, select the color panel, go to the color and take a eyedropper from here and select a color. Take the brighter part of the color from the color picker. Your judgment is very important on how to do it. From a far top right corner, also make sure that your gradient is always a radial gradient rather than a linear gradient. Now this orb of light which we have created is a bit harsh. I'm going to pick this light up. I'm going to move its position to the right hand side. Secondly, I'm going to turn this light into a soft light. So you can still see the difference in the light, but it is now subtle. Go to filter. While being on the blank layer, go to blur and then the Gaussian blur and increase this blur value to 500. This was before the gradient and this is after the gradient. See this. So now you created a source of light. Okay, but you want to show that highlight on the tiger as well. How do you do that? Okay, create another blank layer and in this blank layer again draw this gradient on this tiger. Okay, now what I would suggest is you build this gradient so that the tiger is affected by it. See this. Okay, do a control T, move your gradient to the right hand side and adjust your gradient so that you are comfortable with the light which is falling on the tiger. You don't want too much of light. Okay, layer mask on top of it. Okay, using this button over here, add a vector mask. Okay, and after you add this vector mask over here, near the FX button there is a vector mask button. Okay, Once you add a vector mask over here, you just invert it off. Okay, right now you will not be able to see your gradient, but over here what you have to do is you have to go to select, load selection, and go to object, click OK. Now your object is selected, and in this, take the brush and just press the part of the right hand side of your image so that the effect which was being caused by the gradient will get applied only to this part of the object. See this, and I'm now doing a control D. So see this. However, this is a bit harsh. So again what you do is blending modes, you have to select the vivid light and see this. Okay, now if you personally feel that this effect is a bit harsh than what you exactly want, what you can do is you can reduce the opacity and flow of the effect. Now once this is done, we want to show that this is shadows. How do you show that? Okay, we'll again use the radial filter, but not through here. We'll create a merged layer over here, and in the merged layer we'll go to camera raw filter. In the camera raw filter, zoom out of the image. Okay, take the radial filter. Okay, make sure that you reset the local correction settings, and then you build this kind of a radial. Again, if you see it, I have created this in a very soft manner. If I show the mask, okay, I will have to move this to the right hand side so that the left part of the tiger comes into effect. See this. See. So what I'll do is I'll reduce this again. Okay, and reduce this height. Okay, so you'll have to adjust this, of course. Reduce this feather a bit. Okay, and see this. Once you do this, turn the mask off and then apply the changes. Okay, so you can take this a bit down and add contrast over here, take the highlights down and reduce the shadows. Okay, reduce the blacks a tad bit, not too much. Okay, so this is how you bring in the shadows on the left hand side. Okay, now once you do this, okay, I want to show you one more thing over here. I go to new, I reset this, reset local correction so that all my sliders come back to normal. With a new selection, I select this area and I create a small sort of a vignette on this side just to enhance or to show my source of light. Once this is done, I increase the temperature from this side. See this, and a tad bit of exposure so that my source of light is defined on this side. Okay, and I give it a color as well. Now this entirely depends on you. Okay, if you want to enhance to the light, how do you want to present it, it entirely depends. But if you see, this looks a bit nice, a bit of a drastic kind of an effect where the light is seeping in and getting reduced slowly. Now over here what I can do is I can increase this feather a bit so that that softness of seeping into this is reduced. Okay, and what I do next is I create a third gradient or a third linear filter. Okay, and what I do over here is I go to reset local correction settings. In here I go to luminance. Earlier, very first thing we had gone into color. Now we want to go into luminance, and in luminance what I'll be doing is I want to target only the highlights, only the highlights on the right hand side. See this, only the highlights. Okay, and over here in the brush section I go to the erase and I erase the part where I don't want these highlights to be applied. Okay, and now what I do is I go back to edit, I uncheck this visual luminance map, and I now make my changes. See this, to add to my creative light. So whatever changes are being taking place are taking place only on the highlights of the right hand side and not on the shadows. This is how you can create a separation of lights in your image. The last step that I always do, this includes some third party tools, of course. So firstly I want to enhance the fur of the tiger. I go to Topaz Studio, we go over here, we search for glow, and glow adds to a grunge to this image. I click on apply. Okay, and now I only want to apply those to the main object. How do I do that? I add a layer mask over here. I add a layer mask. White means that the effect is applied to the entire image. I just drag this up. Okay, or I already have a selection which is created over here. I press Alt and I just drag this up. So whatever my effect is, it gets applied only to the object. The next thing that I want to do is reduce the noise in the background and the foreground. I go to filter, in Nick collection, I go to define and let it analyze the entire image, what kind of noise is there. It will do everything on its own. You need not do anything. Over here at the bottom where there is loop return, you can actually see the difference in noise which was earlier and the one which has been reduced. What you have to do over here is you cannot apply this noise reduction on the tiger. The reason is if you apply that noise reduction on the tiger, the sharpness that you want to retain on the fur will go away. So for now what you do is you just click OK, drag this layer mask on the top. For the moment this means that the noise reduction has been applied only on the tiger. You want to inverse it. Now this means that the noise reduction is everywhere except the tiger. The last effect that we are going to add is the vignette. I go to filter, I go to Nick collection and I go to Analog Effects Pro. You can do a lot of things in Analog Effects Pro. See, there are a lot of beautiful filters to this. I'll just turn off this dirt and scratches. Okay, let's do one thing. I'll show you how to apply this kind of an effect as well. Set this, okay, but don't leave at this. Don't leave at the strength and the neutral. Okay, make sure you add your own customizations to the image. Okay, otherwise it doesn't make any sense. Like, it is all it's all like, applying a filter on your Instagram photo and just posting it off. Make sure that you apply this filter as per your requirement. Okay, if you add faded, you give that matte effect to the image. Yes, matte effect does look good. Okay, and in the lens vignette, why we came here for main thing is I'm going to change it from circle to rectangle. Okay, I don't want to give an effect to this entire part, to this entire image. I want to give the effect only to this part because this is where the shadows are. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the size of this vignette. Okay, and I'm going to reduce the power of this vignette, and I just click OK. You also have a chance to add a bit of contrast to the image of your choice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a small matte effect to this image. One thing that we can add, if you have that kind of a patience to do, I'm just showing this, I'm just even trying this on my own as well, is in this image I want to bring a bit of glow to these green leaves over here. Now I want to show you the before and after image. This was where we started after Lightroom, of course, and this is where we have reached. And this is the final version of the image that we have created. I'll now show you the side by side comparison of the before and after part. If you haven't seen part 1 of this video where I have prepared this image in Lightroom to be later edited in Photoshop, which we just saw now, I have added the link in the description. You will also see the link in this video in the upper right hand corner. Please don't forget to subscribe, share, and press the bell icon to see my upcoming videos. Visit my website at www.anupamthomre.com to know about my workshops and to see more of my work. Thank you guys.